Hello, beloved tribe. This is Sarah Grace Nesbitt here with you, radical self love and spiritual integration coach. And I feel compelled to share my most vulnerable video yet with all of you in light of the Orlando shooting that happened this past weekend. And first of all, before I dive into anything, please know that in no way, shape, or form am I condoning hateful or violent acts against any other living being. And I just feel so called to stand here fully embodied in my light and inviting you to do the same and recognizing your capacity and your power to be a contributor to the global healing and change that is calling us on this journey. So to dive in, I'll start with a story that I heard in an NPR interview that I heard a while back. And they were interviewing a man who had written a book, a fiction book. And in this book, one of the main characters was having an affair on his wife. And in real life, this author's wife came to him and said, you know, I'm a little disturbed. Do I need to be worried? Are you cheating on me because you're writing about this character in your book having an affair? And essentially what this author shared is the very honest recognition that he would sometimes see a beautiful woman and have a desire to be with her. And because he loved his wife and valued and honored and respected his wife, he did not want to cause her the pain of an affair. And yet he knew that he still had to be honest and honor that desire within him. And so he found this very safe outlet where he could allow these desires to be acknowledged and expressed. And he found that outlet through writing, through this fictional character. And that was really profound for me. And what I took away was just that willingness to be so honest with all aspects of ourselves. And when we are honest and acknowledge and embrace and give voice to all of the thoughts, emotions, feelings that arise within us, when we no longer judge them or suppress them, they no longer have to act out in such violent, atrocious, combustible ways. I really, truly believe that it's only when we suppress things within us, when we judge them within us, when we think that they aren't worthy of our love, when we think that they aren't an aspect of divinity expressing itself, it is then that we see horrific, violent, hateful events acting out. And so I'll dive into the part of the vulnerability that I mentioned that I wanted to share today. And so when I was a child, you know, I don't have many memories of my childhood, but one of the main memories that sticks out is having, as a young child, I had a hamster, and I was really like kind of violent and mean to that hamster. And that is horrifying for me to acknowledge to myself and to all of you. I've only ever shared that with my husband because I always had so much shame and horror at the fact that I could have that kind of almost enjoyable sense of hurting another creature. I've always been I've held so much shame about that and so much horror about that, and I've really kept it in my shadow and in my secret, in my darkest secrets. And then this past week, I was around children quite a bit, and I watched in one of the children just this kind of interesting darkness, and you know, this desire to like see. We have a lot of gophers at our house, and this desire to see a gopher die. And at first, I was really disturbed hearing that and kind of worried about it. But then at the same time, there was such a purity of innocence in this child. And it just reminded me that humanity, having this human experience, is not black and white. It is messy and complex and complicated and diverse and has a full spectrum of experiences, thoughts, emotions, desires. And I really, I, I'll probably keep saying it, but I really just believe that it's only when we judge these, when we suppress them, when we don't speak them out to anyone because we're afraid of being judged, that they fester in us. And when they fester, they get to a point where they can no longer be held back. So now I just want to share a few experiences I've had that have helped me embrace and recognize the power that we have as empaths when we hear of horrific traumatic events that happened in the Orlando shooting. A few years ago, my car was broken into. Someone threw a rock through the window and stole my purse. And I felt so violated. I felt so upset, so angry, so mad, etc. All these feelings. And then after a while of feeling these feelings, allowing these feelings to be felt, I suddenly had the overwhelming sense of feeling into this person who had stolen my purse and feeling this overwhelming sense of desperation to have money to survive. So desperate that they would go to the act of stealing. And I could, as an empath, I could feel into their despair, into their hopelessness, into their desperation. And I was so moved and moved into the state of being able to, in my heart, offer this person who had stolen my purse compassion. And then within, I think, 30 minutes of that realization, I got a call that my purse had been found and nothing had been taken. All of my credit cards, everything was intact. So that was an interesting experience. And then second, watching Harry Potter movies. There's one of the movies where there's this big, atrocious troll that's trying to kill the main characters of Harry Potter. And watching that one time, I felt this overwhelming sense into this troll and this deep grief and pain that this troll had of never knowing what love was, never being loved, never being accepted, always being seen as a monster, always being seen as something to fear. And having only ever received that, that's all he knew how to be. And so in regards to the shooting, as we are hearing that potentially the shooter attended this gay nightclub and potentially had gay thoughts or desires, but lived in a community where that was so condemned and judged and shamed, I can only imagine and tune into an empath the deep pain that you would feel in having something that felt so natural to you, that was just a natural impulse or desire, be so viciously shamed and told was bad and not God and not worthy of love. My last vulnerable share, shortly after graduating high school, I was raped. And it was a situation that was really confusing because while I verbally said no multiple times, my body responded. And so I allowed it to happen, and I didn't physically fight back. And afterwards, I felt so violated and so broken and so, crying for days. And yet, because it wasn't violent, because I didn't fight back, because my body responded, I didn't think that it qualified as being as rape, even though I had said no multiple times. And so I never told anybody. Excuse me. And I've held that in such internal conflict and guilt and shame. And it's only been in the past couple years that I've begun to kind of explore that situation and explore the residue that it left in me and explore the feelings, and in allowing myself to acknowledge all of that, I began to empath into men, and feeling this, men growing up in this culture that tells them that they should be able to have whatever woman they want. And then if they don't look a certain way, or if they get denied or rejected by a woman, the immense shame and embarrassment they feel. And then men don't have the safety of expressing their emotions in our culture. They're told they have to be strong and not cry. And so they move through this experience of having this deep body desire, and yet maybe constantly being rejected by it because they don't fit the stereotypical look of what women want, and just how devastating and hurtful that would be. And yet they don't have the tools to acknowledge and embrace that devastation and love the one in them that feels hurt. So again, in no way, shape, or form am I condoning or liking the fact that I was raped. Am I condoning or liking the fact that any woman has experienced sexual trauma, rape, sexual attack? In no way am I condoning the Orlando shooting. But I am standing here acknowledging myself as an empath, knowing that so many of you that follow me are light workers, are empaths, and that we have the capability to feel into the other side of this and feel the hurt and the pain and the trauma and the confusion and the suffering. And instead of judging it, instead of shoving it down, we as light workers have the capacity to turn directly into it and offer it love. Recognize that we don't have to understand why. We don't have to understand why we have violent tendencies, why we have certain sexual desires. But if we can begin to just surrender or offer in that everything is divinity, and begin to acknowledge and embrace every thought, every emotion, every feeling as divinity, worthy of more of our love, not less. That is where the healing transpires. Because as we are willing to acknowledge the sexual thoughts and desires we have, as we are willing to acknowledge maybe the sometimes violent, disturbing thoughts or desires that we have, as we acknowledge them, as we give voice to them, they can no longer exist in the darkness of shame. As we voice our secrets, as we start to stand up and acknowledge these parts of ourselves, acknowledge our shadow, and offer our shadow more of our love and our compassion and our willingness to see it, shame can no longer control us and act out in such volatile ways. So that is my message for all of you today. That is my invitation for all of you today. And because I feel so much healing in bringing these dark, scary, vulnerable secrets to the light of my love and voice, I invite you to share with me. Message me, send me an email, send me a private Facebook message, or if you feel comfortable commenting in the comments, but begin to in some way start to shine the light of your love onto your secrets, onto the parts of yourselves that you think are unworthy of love. And in doing so, we begin to heal ourselves, and in doing so, we inspire healing on the planet. So I stand here fully embodying the light of divinity within me, and I stand here fully recognizing the light of divinity within you and its capacity to heal and transform through love. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Again, I would love to hear from you. Truly, truly. Take some time to email me, send me a message, sarah@sarahgracenesbitt.com, or my website. You can find contact information on my website, sarahgracenesbitt.com. Same on Facebook, Sarah Grace Nesbitt. I look forward to hearing from you. I acknowledge you, I commend you, and I am honored to be joined in this journey of healing through love and our willingness to bring love to the darkness, to the shadow. So much love to all of you. Thank you.